Muslim community. It is a variety of backgrounds. But it is my hope that we all could work together. And when we think about those communities, we think about the white community, Caucasian, all of us coming together and no one left out. So that has been the definition of part of my legislative agenda. As a legislator, I have worked to do what is best for America and how to keep America safe. The colleagues that are here know my complete allegiance to my service on the Homeland Security Committee, my allegiance to my service on Judiciary and on budget. Yes. Those who are here remember when Lee Brown was mayor, that was 9/11, and how the community came together. We were one of the communities that had the least amount of attacks, working with the Jewish community against Muslims. And we gathered downtown to stand up against violence against Muslims. In the past week, as Councilmember Kamen has mentioned, we have found hateful bags, hateful information in Mission Bend. We found it in Northwest Houston, anti-Semitic materials. We found hateful materials in Montrose and Heights, my congressional district, council members' representation. Representative Wu and Representative Reynolds' areas in that Mission Bend, I'm not sure who represents that. And then Northwest Houston, as I indicated, but then there's been a video that I'm told, represented by news media, of attacking a multiracial couple. I did not strategically introduce H.R. 61. Since going to the United States Congress and working on the very first hate crime bill, which I'm not sure why the gentleman from Fox News had not paid attention to that. By the way, I was not shrieking, I was legislating. And we were able to pass, as the State House did, and as many of our local government did, an anti-hate crime bill, a federal bill that involves race, ethnicity, religion. And so to make it better in the backdrop of the daunting numbers that I will come back to speak about, the daunting numbers of hate crimes, 64.8% are around race, ethnicity, and ancestry. Right. I did not make these numbers up. I did not make them up. Numbers here are talking about hate crime incidences near your homes, 32%, highways, 16%, schools, 8.1%. They should not happen anywhere. And no religious community should suffer. Right. And so I introduced H.R. 61, Leading Against White Supremacy, on the basis of the hearings that I participated in on Judiciary and on Homeland Security. And listening to the testimony of Director Wray, appointed by Donald Trump, you said that the increasing amount of domestic terrorism was grounded on the surge of white supremacy-based crimes. Our specific examples, the tragedy in Buffalo. This morning I spoke to the Council for the Family in Buffalo, and I look forward to renaming this bill after the oldest person who died on that day, who was taking care of her husband, who was still active in life, who was going to the grocery store. The gentleman said he did a data search and looked for the place where most African Americans lived. He drove to that site.
That's right. That's right.
The perpetrator in Mother Emanuel, the funeral of whom I went to, the pastor, there wasn't a dry eye in this huge, huge civic center, said he wanted to perpetrate a race war. And then the perpetrator drove hundreds of miles in the state of Texas to El Paso. and killed innocent Hispanics that were just out for a Saturday shopping day. He clearly said he was motivated by white supremacy. To my friend at Fox News and all of the periodicals that you will see on now my articles about Congresswoman Jackson Lee, not the important person, but the bill, misreads the bill. There is nothing in H.R. 61 that speaks against a Caucasian person.
Right. Come on.
There's nothing that says that if you want to be in the membership, Representative Reynolds, of white supremacy, I have no authority over you.
That's right.
You can be card carrying. I'm card carrying for the NAACP. Card carrying for the National Bar Association.
Right.
Card carrying and a collaborator with the Hispanic Caucus in Washington. One of their strongest advocates for the work that we do on immigration. What this bill speaks to specifically is white supremacy, and it amends, it's legislation by the way, it amends the hate crime bill, and it has race, ethnicity, and religion, and it has white supremacy motivated crimes.
Right.
That is distinctive from speech.
That's right.
I can read what the First Amendment says. You have the right to association, you have the right to freedom of religion,
Right.
speech, it is protected.
Right.
So let me just make a forceful statement. I take umbrage and offense to the legislative process and democracy when you misdirect and provide misinformation that provokes people to anger.
That's right.
Because this bill was not written in anger. I wasn't angry sitting over the bill and interacting with legislative counsel. There was not an angry bone in my body. I knew there was a problem that had to be addressed. So this is not a statement bill. It's a crime bill. I chair the Crime Committee on Homeland Security, Terrorism, and it is about added penalties if you are indicted and ultimately convicted for white supremacy motivated crimes that result in Walmart, Buffalo, Mother Emanuel, and others. Tree of Life, thank you so very much. I was pulling that up. I actually went to Pittsburgh, sat down with people from Tree of Life. Thank you for reminding me. Under the Homeland Security Committee, we went to Pittsburgh. I'm not a stranger to going to these places.
Right.
To be able to respond.
That's right.
And so I collect data.
Yes.
But I listen to our experts. You don't need to follow me. Get on Director Ray's Senate testimony in 2021 and the testimony before Homeland Security and the testimony before Judiciary, which says what this is.
Right.
So I simply want to leave with you. Read the bill.
Right.
Tell me that there's not a purpose for this. And my very astute non-member of Congress is right. When a bill is introduced, it is marked up.
Yes.
Even people have an opportunity to have input.
Yes.
You
Right.
know,
That's right.
representatives,
That's right.
to amend the the language. Even the author of the bill says, you know what? Good, let's make that clearer.
Yeah. Yes.
And so we're still in the legislating process. But as it is written on its face, this has nothing to do with speech or categorizing Caucasian people in any way.
That's right.
I started out by saying my task as a congressperson, as a legislator in America, to do what is best for America.
That's right.
And to ensure that if I see something that is wrong, I stand up and speak about it.
That's right. Right.
Hate crimes are wrong. And I will not be stopped from standing up and speaking about it. Let me acknowledge and thank the senior pastor of the Community of Faith who has brought us together under the umbrella of what the NAACP is, an advocate for justice, but it brings people together in that fight. Bishop James Dixon.
Let me say, we honor our Congresswoman on this morning, the esteemed and honorable Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee of the 18th Congressional District. Thank you so very much. And we honor you today as we stand in the Mickey Leland Federal Building here in downtown Houston. And to all of our elected officials who are going to speak in just a few moments, but let me just quickly mention, we're glad to have our county commissioner here, Adrian Garcia. We're honored to have with us, of course, Councilwoman Abby Kamen, you've heard from already, and certainly State Representative Ron Reynolds, Chair of the Texas Black Legislative Caucus, and State Representative Jean Wu, who's with us as well. And I see Jean Wu, and of course, all of our elected officials, and then of course, the pastors who are here that we will acknowledge in just a few moments on the back of that. Oh. Thank you so very much. I do want to recognize Pastor Stephanie Wilkins of the St. John's Downtown Church. God bless you. Thank you, Ms. Wilkins. Thank you, Minister Wilkins. Thank you to Dr. Marcus Bonham, who is with the Tamina Church of Christ. And thank you for being with us as well. And Pastor Lou of the Antioch Baptist Church, Missionary Baptist Church, the oldest Black Baptist church in the city of Houston, the precursor to even ours, founded by the Reverend Jack Yates. We are honored to have all of these pastors and leaders who are here that will be referred to in just a few moments. Again, my name is Bishop James Dixon, pastor of the Community of Faith Church and presiding president of Kingdom Builders Global Fellowship, as well as the vice president of the Houston Metropolitan Ministers Conference under the leadership of Dr. Samuel Jackson Gilbert II, who sends his blessings, Congresswoman, as well. I want to also say, of course, I'm wearing the hat of NAACP president today, and we're grateful to have helped to convene this very important press conference. Today, it's unfortunate that hate crimes involving white supremacy are a threat to public health and public safety.
Speak.
I think that we need to state that very clearly.
Speak.
That hate crimes resulting from white supremacy are a threat to public safety and public health. The information that the Congresswoman has referred to on the charts before us makes that clear. The statement from Director Wray of the FBI, all of that makes this very clear. This is an unfortunate reality in the America that we live in today. And so the Houston NAACP joins with all of our colleagues standing here today at this press conference, supporting our Congresswoman and applauding her for taking the courageous leadership, demonstrating the courage necessary to speak truth to power in order to heal America of this disease called white supremacy, which is, of course, synonymous to racism. I don't think anyone in this nation, black, white, brown, or otherwise, would suggest that we are a healthy nation with white supremacy on the rise and hate crimes related to that. This would be the same as if these statistics stated were about black supremacy or brown supremacy or Asian supremacy, or if any other group, any other ideology was producing this kind of hate and this level of violence, we would be talking about that today.
That's right.
The NAACP would be standing here today if this was about black supremacy and hate crimes related to mass murders. We would be right here today, just as passionate and just as emphatic. Today, we're here because these facts are before us. And they're not new. And this is I think we're late. We're glad that this is happening today, but we're late. We should have been doing this in 1964.
Yes.
When Cheney and Goodman and Schwerner were murdered on June 21st, 1964, trying to get people registered to vote.
That's right.
We should have been doing this long before now, in June 17, 2015, when the mass shooting takes place in Charleston, South Carolina at the Mother Emanuel AME Church, when Dylan Roof killed 9 innocent people, including the pastor. We should have been doing this before, in June 28, 2019, when James Fields rammed his car into a crowd of anti-racist protesters in June 2017 and killed Heather Heyer and injured many others. That was a result, brothers and sisters, of white supremacy ideology. Thank God that finally in 2023, we're about to get legislation passed, prayerfully, that will speak to this awful disease and scourge. I close with this. White supremacy is not synonymous to being white. I think it's important that Tucker Carlson and others clear the record and state it clearly. This language in this bill does not make being white synonymous to being racist. It does not make being white synonymous to being a white supremacist. It would seem to me that the most angered people by white supremacy should be non-white supremacy whites. The people who should be protesting
And did you know that the same people who go and say, whenever we say stop violence against African Americans, are the same people who go, well, come on, it's not a big deal. The same people, when we say stop anti-Asian hate, are the ones who say, oh, you're just being snowflakes, don't worry about it. Are also the same people when we say our children ought to be able to learn about Black history, and they say, why are you attacking white people? The same people when we say Black lives matter, they say, well, what about us? this attack on efforts to make sure that when people go out and incite violence, when people go out and incite hate, when people go out and tell people to get locked and loaded, to take it into their own hands, when to tell people, those people are your enemies, the ones who don't look like you, go get them. The people who defend that, do not stand for American values. Because we are a country that may not have perfect equality, but we strive for it. And when there are people out there who say, we want you to go do things, we want you to go take care of those people that we don't like, that we disagree with, that don't look like us, that is un-American. We stand against that, and this law that the Congresswoman Jackson Lee proposes would put into the books what we all as a society know to be common sense, right? And it is not the civil libertarians like ACLU or any other groups who say this is wrong, because they understand that incitement to violence, calls to hatred, calls for people to commit violent acts is not protected speech and never has been. We stand here today to make America, to make our nation a more perfect union, and I say, God bless Congresswoman Jackson Lee.
Thank you so very much, Representative Wu. We appreciate you and thank you for your truth. We're also thankful to have with us today an ecumenical group of leaders, faith leaders in our community, and our friend, our colleague, our brother, Mark Tobin with the Anti-Defamation League is with us today, always on the forefront, always standing for unity, equality, and for justice. Thank you. Would you please speak now?
He was attacked by Tucker Carlson, ADL.
Yes, he was attacked.
Not ADL.
But, yes,
That's
and the
right.
ADL. Yes,
Yeah, thank you, Bishop Dixon. It is a pleasure to stand with you all here today. This press conference was originally going to be outside, and I want to tell you that even if it was still outside in the cold and rain, I and everyone else would still be here standing with Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee. And here's why. Because she has stood with us, the Jewish community, and every other community in this extraordinarily diverse city. Whether it was a year ago, we just acknowledged the 1-year anniversary of the hostage taking at Colleyville. Who was here to support the Jewish community? It was Sheila Jackson Lee. In her 2 decades as a member of Congress, anytime we have had a need, when we have had the need for someone to speak out, to provide support, we never even had to ask. She volunteered. She came forward. And that's why I would stand outside in the cold, in the rain, with the Honorable Sheila Jackson Lee. ADL, approximately a year and a half ago, suggested that Fox News part ways with Tucker Carlson because of his endorsement of the replacement theory. The replacement theory is responsible for motivating the killer at Pittsburgh's Tree of Life, motivating the killer at the El Paso Walmart, and many others. It is an atrocious theory that is both anti-Semitic and racist, and shouldn't be tolerated, much less by one of the largest cable networks in this country.
That's right.
We understand that white supremacy and extremism are more problematic today than they were a year ago, more problematic than they were 2 years ago, 5 years ago, and 10 years ago. And the action that Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee is taking to thwart this rise in extremism and white supremacy is important. And it's not something should be denigrated by an individual who has perpetrated racist and anti-Semitic fervor on his program. We know that if we do not stand against white supremacy and extremism, that it will rise and it will influence others. We just had a survey that showed that anti-Semitic attitudes have dramatically increased in this country. That's not necessarily an accident. It starts with the extremes, but it does filter down into the mainstream. It becomes normalized. And that's when it becomes really dangerous. And it's efforts like this that we need so that we can thwart this growth of hate, whether it's anti-Semitism, racism, anti-AAPI. Now's the time that we have to take a stand. And it is my honor to stand with all these individuals here, and particularly the Honorable Sheila Jackson Lee, in order to take a stand against white supremacy and extremism. On behalf of the ADL, thank you, Congresswoman. Congressman just reminded me of something that I also meant to talk about, which is in his presentation, Tucker Carlson called what Congresswoman is suggesting in her legislation a blood libel. This is perhaps the most offensive thing that he could say. The blood libel is a centuries-old anti-Semitic trope which has provoked many people to hurt and kill Jews throughout the years. And here he has the audacity to suggest that this trope is being applied to white people in general. It is the height of racism, it is the height of anti-Semitism, that the response to an effort to thwart the rise of white supremacy and extremism is meant by trying to turn a trope on its head and apply it to a different group of people. We have to speak up, and not just us, but everyone. As someone mentioned before, yes, it's great that community leaders are speaking up, but it is incumbent on everyone in all walks of life to confront hate speech, anti-Semitism, racism, anti-AAPI, anti-Latin, all forms of hate. And we're at a tipping point. If we don't do it now, we're going to get to a place that we do not want to get to. And so once again, I just want to thank the Congresswoman for her efforts and for all those here.
Thank you very much, Mark. We appreciate the work that the ADL does day in, day out, year in and year out. And the NAACP is always proud to partner with you and to stand with you as well. We have with us one of the iconic civil rights, human rights warriors in our community, a mentor, a brother beloved. We have seen his work, we've seen his action, and we know his courage. We're glad to have with us Mr. Johnny Mata. He's with LULAC as well as with the Greater Houston Justice Coalition, of which I'm a member. And thank you so very much. Let's welcome Mr. Johnny Mata at this time. Mata.
Anyone that attacks a warrior like Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee attacks all of us. Unfortunately, I was eating breakfast when I found out about this news conference. And I'm not here to break in on a news conference. I'm here to support the members that are here in saying that attack on Congresswoman Sheila Jackson is an attack on all of us. I want to say very briefly, this bill that she's talking about, the Greater Houston Coalition has asked 5 federal agencies to investigate the criminal activities, allegations of criminal activities on a scrupulous employer in this area. We're not ready to announce who or what, but I can tell you that when it comes to this kind of activities, the Greater Houston Coalition for Justice, like my brother said, is ready to stand up, not only to support the Congresswoman, but to speak out and to demand justice. For too long, people like this character, Tucker, have gotten away with racist and waking up and stirring up the pot of racism by his statements. I will put before this next board meeting of the coalition that the Federal Communication look into the difference between freedom of speech and stirring up the pot of racism, especially with this man. And that we need to guide not to silence speech, but to look out and make these people and bring them to their attention that exceeds freedom of speech and they need to be sanctioned. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Johnny Mata. Always on point, always salient with your comments and courageous. We're also grateful to have with us today a young leader, a young warrior in our community who is always on the front lines when it comes to speaking up for civil rights and human rights. He's the leader of FIEL, our brother, our friend, Cesar Espinosa. Cesar, come on, please.
Thank you, Bishop Dixon. My name is Cesar Espinosa, and I'm Executive Director of FIEL. And I want to start off with just something very simple. Is why am I able to stand here? Here in this federal building, in this city? And the reason is because many folks have fought for that right for me to be able to stand here. And we must acknowledge that, and we must pay tribute to that. And more importantly is we must build upon that so that the next generation doesn't have to fight our battles, but rather they can fight their own for the betterment of themselves and their children.
Right.
This weekend I was blessed and privileged to be in Atlanta for